You know, I've never met an expat couple who said, "We would like our relationship to become unequal, please." Quite the opposite. Most couples moving abroad genuinely want to build this life together. So then why does it often end up feeling as though one person's life still becomes the default determining factor for both? If you have or are about to move abroad as a couple to follow someone's career or home, chances are that your relationship doesn't arrive on equal footing. Even though you and your partner may feel completely equal in your relationship, your circumstances are not. The situation inherently leads to a form of structural asymmetry, a situational skewed balance. One partner's career expands, and the other partner's career may pause or change. One partner immediately has a social network, and the other has to build one from scratch. One person's calendar is filled with meetings, and the other person's plans are still invisible. This is simply the structure you stepped into and said yes to together. Asymmetry exists, and that's okay. But it would be a mistake to believe that this won't influence your relationship, for both of you for that matter. And ignoring this, just letting this structural asymmetry run its course, can inadvertently lead to relational asymmetry as well. Research actually supports this. Studies on expatriate couples consistently show that partners adjust better when they genuinely participate in relocation decisions and maintain strong communication and preserve a sense of family cohesion. Now, before you want to just drop this in the common sense bucket, let's unpack this just a little more, because this is not quite as straightforward as it may sound. I've talked about something closely related to this in my video about financial balance in expat couples, and how simply sharing the income does not necessarily make it feel equal at all. And it's interesting that here again, the research does not simply point so much to practical support or solutions, but much more to participation, feeling part of the life you're building together. Now, again, one side of this story sounds somewhat obvious. It seems logical that it will feel better for the partner who followed their loved one for life abroad to still be involved and participating in building their life together. We can kind of logically understand that. It feels that makes sense. But here's what's fascinating. It's not just for them. Research shows that structural asymmetry that defaults decision power to the person with the income, the visa, and the structure is counter-beneficial for both. Not just the person who gets not to decide as much, also the person who did. When there's structural asymmetry, and there inherently is whenever you move abroad together for one person's job or life, we need to consciously counterbalance that by protecting mutual participation and agency for both people's sake. But how do you actually do that? Because reality is that even if you want to be equal and genuinely intend to approach it that way together and do everything that you can to keep that, most people still feel the effects under the surface. Power differences appear in subtle ways. It's whose career or daily obligations are assumed to weigh just a little heavier, like who needs to pick up the sick child from daycare or when the vacation can be scheduled. It's whose concerns shape the agenda, what is being talked about, and how urgent that is. A form of default legitimacy. And this goes both ways again. It's not that the person who has the job simply takes it on them to, from here to forth, make all the calls. On the contrary, in many expat couples I work with, both people want to do this in equality. There's not an exertion of power, and the working partner may even feel deeply hurt if they were aware that their partner didn't feel equal in the relationship. Regardless, even when you agree you're in this together and wanting to work as a team, the following partner may still feel the effects of asymmetry and act on that, or leave the acting to their partner. And if you're the working spouse, this is something you're living inside too. You may feel enormous responsibility, pressure to make the assignment worth it, guilt that your opportunities come at a cost to someone you love, or uncertainty about when to lead and when to step back. So then the question remains, how do you do this then when you want to work with structural asymmetry and still keep the relationship balanced and creating a conscious equilibrium? First, I want to talk about what may be a very logical line of thinking here, because that one can actually make things worse. Let's talk about the seesaw effect. Because in this structural asymmetry, one side receives a huge weight. Career, income, visa, the right to even stay in that country, financial, social, identity. Gravity pulls that side down, and a logical thought or thing that might then occur is that we need to put extra weight on the other side to make the seesaw move the other way again. Maybe we need to give the non-working partner specific things that they get to decide on. Or maybe next time they get to decide where life will go after this posting or our time committed to this country. And where for some couples this may actually work, for many it doesn't resolve things, and there's even a risk that this will only further increase asymmetry. Let me explain. Think about your friendships for a moment. Most of us know two very different kinds. There's the friendship where you're vaguely keeping track. Who called last? Who drove further? Whose turn is it to pay? And wasn't my dish actually more expensive, so is it still fair for them to pick up the tab? Did I not talk too much? Should I ask more about how they're doing? And they watered my plants, so I need to make sure that I will water theirs, or I can give them a bottle of wine as a thank you. It comes from a genuine wish to not take advantage of the other and to keep things in harmony. That's beautiful. At the same time, it does require mental energy to maintain this type of relationship. And then there's another form of friendships. You don't even think about it ever. And the balance may even be skewed or constantly flowing. Maybe one person always calls first, and maybe the other usually buys the coffees. Yet somehow, neither of you feels uneven. You simply know the relationship is balanced, not transaction by transaction, but across the whole friendship. You don't feel concerned about ensuring you're still investing as much, and you don't need to mentally keep track of a relational bank account. Now think about these two different friendships and how they feel, how you feel in them. I think the second one feels much more with like a mental freedom. You don't have to think about it that much. Psychologist Margaret Clark talks about exactly this. She distinguishes between two different ways that relationships operate. One is what she calls an exchange relationship. That's the one where you keep track. I did this, I owe you something, it's my turn, it's your turn. Again, the desire to want to exchange or compensate or to take turns is a very human way of thinking, evolutionarily embedded even. It's our innate need for fair exchange, of not wanting to take advantage of someone and not wanting to be taken advantage of. In and by itself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with an exchange relationship. The other is what she calls a communal relationship. Here, You don't stop caring about fairness, but you do simply stop keeping score. Instead, you just trust that over time, you're both contributing to and benefiting from the well-being of the relationship. And it comes with a risk that indeed inequality may exist or grow, but I think it also comes with more mental space, with that feeling of freedom. Now, in expat couples, the sacrifices and structural asymmetry are typically more pronounced and weightier than in any other relationship. It's not anymore about who paid for coffee, but it's, I gave up my career. It's, I asked you to move and leave your family behind. It's, I earn all the money and carry that responsibility. It's, you couldn't go to your friend's wedding back home. And because the weight of that is large, structural asymmetry can almost push us into exchange thinking. But I don't believe this is a safe foundation for a relationship. By keeping the focus on who's giving up what, we continue keeping a score, a tab of whose turn it is to suffer a loss. Because the moment sacrifice becomes currency, the relationship inadvertently becomes a ledger. And ledgers are designed to settle debts, and relationships aren't. And honestly, however painful it may be to hear this, the sacrifices can never be repaid anyway. The job or career path that has been given up or paused cannot be returned. The friendships that didn't survive the physical distance are still interrupted. The years or important events missed with people back home will not come back. Those are very real things that absolutely deserve to be acknowledged and are an important part of what you both are dealing with together. And I will get back to that in a little bit, but they should not be weighing on the relationship itself. The cost of placing that weight on the relationship is a debt that nobody can fully recover from. So we need to move away from keeping score, and that's easier said than done. It requires you to consciously create a new balance without pretending that the circumstances are equal and without ignoring the sacrifices that were truly made, but also without letting all of that dictate your relationship. What I think needs to happen is that we take on that communal relationship approach, that we start approaching it like a mountain expedition. One person may be carrying the climbing equipment, and the other is carrying the food, navigation, weather, planning, and camp. They're carrying different loads, and sometimes one backpack is objectively heavier, and sometimes the other is. Neither backpack tells you whose contributions matter more. The expedition succeeds because both are carrying what the expedition currently needs. In expat couples, it can work the same in a beautiful way. Not, I am supporting or assisting your mission, but we're each responsible for different parts of creating our life abroad together. Here are a few conversations I think are worth having before life answers them for you. And first, I want to invite you to do this individually. Take some time to sit with some real honest questions that will follow. And I suggest that you write it down for yourself. Just let your thoughts flow freely without correcting it yet. You can always make it more nuanced later. The first question is, what is in my backpack? We need to start with honestly looking at where you feel the weight in your backpack. What are you carrying? What feels heavy? What have you sacrificed? Without blame or ledger toward anyone, what has the structural asymmetry led to for you? And then turn this question around. Answer what you believe this did for your partner. Again, no judgment, no guilt. Just sketch what the consequences of asymmetry were. The follow-up and deeper question is, what weight am I holding on to? Now it is time to be very honest about what still feels important and like something you can't just easily let go of. There's no judgment here either. It's okay to feel the weight of inequality, of things you had to give up on. You see, the most important reason we tend to keep score is because we're typically afraid that if we stop counting, that what we gave up will just simply disappear, that it will be forgotten and lost, that our sacrifice won't have mattered, that it won't have been seen. And all the while, you keep trying to climb mountains with that weight in your backpack. The sacrifices do deserve to be seen and acknowledged, starting with you acknowledging it for yourself. And then next, I want you to also ask yourself where you're feeling the weight of your partner's sacrifices. What weight are you holding in your backpack on their behalf? What are you carrying so that their loss or sacrifice doesn't disappear, gets forgotten, or lost? And where do you see the weight of your sacrifices in their backpack? The third question to explore is, where am I unconsciously keeping score? Now you know what you're holding on to. The hardest question to answer is, where do you feel that this still needs to get some form of compensation, repayment in one way or another? And I want you to go even one step deeper and ask yourself, what would that bring you? Because the beauty of this question is in answering it honestly for yourself. You can often discover an unmet need, and maybe what you're really longing for isn't repayment at all. Maybe it's recognition or choice, acknowledgement or appreciation, or relief of a burden of responsibility. Those are all very different drivers, and it's so helpful to explore and unravel them and get to know them so that you actually know why it's still so heavy for you. And make sure you look both ways again, where you feel owing and where you feel like you're owed. And it could be anywhere in decision power and wanting to have your turn next, or ensuring that your partner gets their turn next, financially, practically, emotionally, all of it. And after you've each done your own introspection on this, you then come together and talk about this. Yes, you can totally blame me for the unusual Sunday afternoon conversation you probably never had until someone exactly like me prompted you to do so. Now, be careful though, because you don't want to turn this into a who has it worse competition. This is not about comparing the sacrifices at all. That would yank the chain of making the relationship a ledger again. But instead, honor the differences without blame. See where your answers are similar and where they're not. Listen carefully to what your partner shares with you, as often these are things they never even dare to admit to themselves, let alone to you. And no apologies are needed here either. Just acknowledge what your partner says and that the structural asymmetry affects you both in your own unique ways. And then explore what you can learn and decide here. Some of the questions you might explore are, what does each of us need to flourish here? And where is the structure already making decisions for us, even if we don't want that to happen? And what weight in our backpacks do we want to reduce or lay down? And what choices can we now consciously make instead of letting the structural asymmetry determine things for us? Your contributions to your life abroad together may be completely different, and they're probably not going to be a classic or neat 50-50, and that's perfect. They don't need to be. One friend can always call first, and the other can usually pay for coffees. One expat partner can generate all the income, and the other can be the one who creates social belonging or whatever it is. They are contributions to the same life. You're both responsible for creating a life that works for the both of you. You're on a mountain expedition together. Structural asymmetry is real, and it won't disappear. The biggest danger is not the sacrifices we made. The biggest danger is allowing those sacrifices to become the organizing principle of the relationship. And your relationship deserves the freedom of never becoming a ledger. If we haven't met yet, my name is Ava, Expat Transition Coach and Advisor. If this is the first time someone's put something that you are living every day into words and gave you practical next steps for it too, that's exactly what my work and this channel is for. Make sure to follow along so that the next thing that needs naming finds you when it's ready. In my videos and in my work, I'm hoping to give you a taste of my passion, the mission that I'm on, and that I'm dedicating all of my time and energy to, because I strongly believe that everyone deserves to live life abroad fully. And what I shared here with you today is part of a program that my business partner and I are offering for couples who have just or are about to move abroad together for one person's job. Preparing well for that mountain expedition requires more than just packing your belongings and finding a house. What I talked about here today is only one part of the tools and skills you need to acquire to ensure your life together abroad will be a success, a life filled with purpose and joy. You need to have the right skills, everything from stabilizing identities to social embedding and your relationship itself. Those give you the foundations and stability in a rocky and amazing adventure together. And if you're ready to lay those foundations together and want to talk about this or anything that may have come up for you from today's video, I'll leave a link near this video where you, together with your partner or individually, can schedule an online conversation with me. No obligations, not a sales call, simply an opportunity to explore your thoughts together with someone who can personally understand what you may be going through and help you take a next step. Regardless if you decide from there to ask me to work with you or not, I'm convinced that this conversation alone will give you clarity and concrete tools. And I can't wait to speak with you personally, because everyone deserves to live life fully, no matter where in the world you are or for how long.